Talktainmentradio.com. We give you a reason to come. The world's greatest radio. We give you a reason to stay. Radio the way it should be heard. You got the power.
The views and opinions expressed are those of the host and guests and not necessarily those of Talktainmentradio.com, 3MR Production, its ownership, management, or staff.
We've got the power.
This is The Compensatory Concept with Mr. Neely Fuller, heard exclusively on TalktainmentRadio.com, the world's greatest radio. Radio the way it should be heard. And now, Mr. Neely Fuller.
If you do not understand white supremacy, which is racism, what it is and how it works, everything else that you understand will only confuse you. Only confuse you. Only confuse you.
United Independent Compensatory Code System concept by Neely Fuller is considered as one of the substantial and basic books for understanding and effectively countering racism. Neely Fuller will turn upside down everything you've heard and everything you think you know about racism and how it works. Call area code 202-484-5461. 202-484-5461.
This is The Compensatory Concept, of course, with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr., heard exclusively on TalktainmentRadio.com, radio the way it should be heard. There's so much going on until we're just happy to have Mr. Fuller here so that we can get some of this straightened out. So joining us, of course, live at this time. Now, you can always podcast Mr. Fuller. You can always catch him in the podcast 24/7. All you have to do is go to TalktainmentRadio.com, and a lot of you have been doing it. TalktainmentRadio.com. You go to programs, look up Compensatory Concept. Compensatory Concept. Then go to programs, and then voila, there you are. Just podcast Mr. Fuller and me, and I'm Brother Kahari, and but this is Mr. Fuller's show. This is not Brother Kahari's show. So what we do is that we coordinate. You can call me a coordinator. I coordinate on this end of it so that we are able to hear the concepts and the thoughts of the code as written and developed, of course, by Neely Fuller. And over the years, Mr. Fuller has observed the dynamics of interaction between people, and he has looked at it and peered inside of it, and he has developed a concept and gone out and tested that concept to ensure that that concept is just not a concept, it's a concept that works, it's a concept that's effective. And so we constantly go over what it is that is effective and what it is that's not effective. But at any rate, I bring to you Mr. Fuller. Mr. Fuller, how are you, sir? Mr. Fuller, good morning. How are you, sir?
I'm still learning.
Mr. Fuller, tell everybody how we can get your work and all of those things that are very essential for the development of what it is that we are attempting to do here. Go ahead, Mr. Fuller.
Well, we should be attempting to make the world the type of place that it ought to be since we're in it. And so we want our surroundings and everything that we interact with to work the way that things should work and not have all of this unnecessary hostility and unnecessary destructiveness, which is prevalent all of the time, all 24/7 around all of the people who are on the planet, particularly people who are classified as non-white. And the major engineering feat that has been accomplished to manifest all of that hostility and destructiveness has been in the form of something that we loosely call racism and or the system of white supremacy. That's the biggest holdup in getting anything done of a constructive nature, because the system of racism itself is designed to be destructive of people. It accomplishes a lot of things in the way of material things. That's obvious. The system of racism does work when it comes to producing things. High-speed aircraft getting the crops out, getting the things done in a more efficient manner as far as handling things. The problem is the system is also designed to throw away millions of people in that process. You leave too many dead people on the factory floor, you might say. You get your product, but you got dead people on the factory floor, and you do it deliberately. Now, there can be a better system, and that system, conceptually, would be the system of justice, which I gave it a compensatory definition since there's no legal definition for the word justice as far as what I've been told. And so I say justice consists of two parts, guaranteeing that no person is mistreated at no time, no person being mistreated, not to say anything about being mistreated deliberately in order to get something done, but guaranteeing that no person is mistreated is part one. Part two, guaranteeing that the person that needs help the most gets the most constructive help. Not just any kind of help, because sometimes you say that you can help people to go into the drug business, as was kind of depicted in the movie The Godfather, where they said, well, this is the way we will handle it. I mean, we can make money, we can keep money moving, because if money is not moving, then everything comes to a standstill in a monetary system. So you have to keep money moving from hand to hand. So one way you do this to get rapid fire money moving, and also you providing a service in the process of doing it, and in this particular case, as was depicted in this program at the beginning, the scene in The Godfather, well, we can get a lot of money moving through a drug trade. But a drug trade causes people to be destroyed. Well, which people are going to be destroyed? Well, we'll put it among the coloreds. The colored people, the non-white people, because they're animals anyway. Let them lose their souls. But we'll make plenty of money in the process.
Mm-hmm.
So that's been basically the philosophy of the white supremacists throughout its entire history.
Mr. Fuller, let's get into this long, hot summer sizzle, where what we're seeing is black people killing each other up at an increased rate, should we say. We're seeing it in Chicago, where Minister Louis Farrakhan and others are walking the streets, and we're going to hear from, we're going to play a little piece from that here in a second, where we're hearing about the problems in New Orleans. We know, for example, in the Columbus area, and I'm sure in the D.C. area, it's all reflected, running along the same grind. Mr. Fuller, let me get your thoughts on this before we play a piece on it. Let me get your thoughts on why we are continuing at an unceasing rate to kill each other, black people in particular. Mr. Fuller.
It's a system of white supremacy that does this. They are to blame. They are always the usual suspects. They're always behind it because they set up a system that glorifies violence. And the violence that is glorified is violence against non-white people. In other words, something dark, is be forbidden. Dark people, dark anything, is something that you stay away from. And if you can't get away from it, you lash out at it. You destroy it. So black people are taught this at a very early age without even being aware that they are being taught this. And so as they grow up from little boys and little girls, little by little, they are sent messages. And then they are given the means to carry out these messages. Guns are made available. They just don't come out of anywhere. They are made available. The people who are carrying the guns wouldn't know anything about how to make one of them.
Mm-hmm.
But all of a sudden, in certain places, they just show up. They're made available. And then the hostility is already there. Because in a system of white supremacy, black people, when they're allowed a little time off from doing their work and the things that they have to do, eat and sleep, then they look around for something to do, because we don't have a purpose in our existence. Black people are not given a purpose for existing, except to destroy. That's the purpose that they're given. That's the bill of fare. What does a black person do after a black person gets a semi-full stomach, or even sometimes without a full stomach, or a night's sleep, or a little bit of sleep, and just permitted to walk around on the face of the earth? What is the assignment of a black person? Well, the white supremacists say is, well, if you're not doing anything, that I have come and taken you by the ear and made you do, then I allow you a so-called free time if you're black. Now, if you have this so-called free time, what do you do with this so-called free time? Well, you look for other black people. Look for other black people for what? Oh, just first of all, you just look for them. Mm-hmm. See, black people have that tendency. When they're just wandering around not knowing what to do with themselves, first thing they think about doing, I'm going and find me some more black people. I don't see any black people around here. I don't see anybody around here. But I'm going and look for some people. I want to be around some people because I don't know what to do with myself. So I'm going to be around some people. Mm-hmm. Now, what people are you going to be around? Well, the white people don't want me around them, okay? And when I'm around them, I don't know what to do anyway. They're all strange to me. They're weird to me. They are alien to me. So I want to be around people who are somewhat familiar. Now, who would these people be? People that look just like me. So I walk down the street looking for some more black people. So when I find these black people, now, what's the agenda? What do I do? They have found me because they're looking for me, and I have found them because I'm looking for them. So we stand there, and the first thing we do is look at each other. And then we might just grin and smile, and we might hug each other and high-five and all like that. Okay, now we get bored. That's the next thing that sets in. After that initial contact, boredom begins to set in because we don't know what to do. Once we contact each other, we have no agenda of any kind. So we just kind of just look at each other, and then we get bored with doing that. Now, out of boredom, we start nitpicking each other.
Okay.
And then out of the nitpicking
comes the violence.
Comes hostility. And then out of the hostility comes the fighting. And out of the fighting comes the killing.
All right.
Anybody who doesn't believe that's a scenario, just watch. Any effort that will help black people to think about what they are doing and why they are doing it. And that's black people, not just the youngsters and all like that, but that's black people in general throughout the entire world. We don't have an agenda. We don't have a reason for existing that makes sense. We don't have a culture that makes sense. Because if you just look at the essence of black culture, you can't even enumerate what it is, except a reaction to the culture of white supremacy. If the white supremacists are not holding us by the ear and say, okay, come here, fella, come here, okay, come with me, do this, do that, okay, when you finish doing this, I got another project for you. Now, we make sense when they are orchestrating what we are doing. You know, come over here and operate this machine. Okay, enough of that. Come down here and drive this vehicle. Okay, all right, enough of that. Come over here and build this bridge. Okay, enough of that. All right, now I'm going to allow you a little free time. See, once we get that free time, because, you know, the slave mentality is, hey, I'm not supposed to have free time. Somebody's supposed to be telling me what to do. So when I don't know, somebody's not telling me what to do every minute of my entire existence, I got no idea about what to do. I don't even know what I'm existing for. So then we fall into what we call the black culture stereotype, which is violence against other black people. And when I say violence, I mean verbal violence. Listen to black people walking down the street on their cell phones. If you don't believe it, if you think I'm making it up, listen to black people walking down the street on their cell phones. MF this and MF that. And I told that MF, and I told, and then that's both males and females. The female saying, Keisha came over to my house and she come up with all that S and started talking about this and whatnot, and and she came over there telling me about Vanessa, and Vanessa is my sister, and I don't allow nobody to say nothing about my sister. This is, from the back of the bus, cell phone talk, all hostile, nothing pleasant, not one word of civility out of all of it, wherever you find black people. Nothing being said that makes any sense at all, nothing that is constructive in any way. And so we have to have a constructive culture. So the first step toward remedying that, black people shouldn't come in contact with each other at all under any circumstance unless they have a constructive agenda. That's the key.
All right, Mr. Fuller, stay right there. More to come on the compensatory concept, heard exclusively on TalkTainmentRadio.com.
We've got the power.
Justice is better than racism.
This is the compensatory concept with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr., heard exclusively on TalkTainmentRadio.com. Radio, the way it should be heard. And as you know, every week at this time, we talk about what's going on with in the world as it relates to the issues surrounding white supremacy, which are obviously big issues. But one of the things that's making a lot of news that we've been looking on is this black people taking each other out, killing each other. Mr. Fuller, let me get your response to this.
Yes, it's to be expected. This is to be expected. But we should understand, first of all, that we are programmed this way. Black people are toxic. All of us are toxic. We are loaded with poison because the system of white supremacy puts that poison in us even before we are born. And when we are born into the system of white supremacy. We're not born into a system of la-la land. We're born into the system of white supremacy. The system of white supremacy is designed for everyone, including black people themselves, to have a hostile position, a hostile thought toward anything dark, and particularly dark people. That's just the way the world is run. That's the way the white supremacists have set it up before any of us were born. So we have to, first of all, know that. So we all carry that poison. It's in us. We're not aware of it, in one sense, you might say. Then in another sense, we are aware of it, but we're in denial. But we have to admit, first of all, we have this poison. And then we immediately should jump to, what do we do about it? Well, the first thing you do, you don't want poison to spread. That's just a part of physics, the laws of mathematics. If you got poison on hand, you don't want the poison to spread. How do you keep the poison from spreading? You make sure that every contact that every black person makes with every other black person has a plan beforehand to do something constructive. Do or say something constructive. Don't get on the cell phone and call anyone just to make conversation. That's an old part of the what you might call black culture or people culture, for that matter. With some people, it works. With most people, particularly black people in the northwestern hemisphere, it's poisonous. It is deadly. You don't pick up that cell phone and call anyone, ever, just to chat. Hey, girl, I haven't heard from you in a little while. What's going on? No, absolutely. That is poison.
Toxic means what, Mr. Fuller? When you
Toxic just means poisonous. Poisonous. In other words, our minds are poison. The things that we are getting ready to say to people is loaded with poison. The way that we look at people, the way that we see the world, loaded with poison. The poison was planted in us. So every time we make contact with anything, we just spread poison because we are loaded with poison. And if we are contacting other black people, they are loaded with poison and dynamite. And you're going to get an explosion unless you tailor and suppress that poison and tailor it in such a way that it's kind of shunted off to the side, or it doesn't manifest itself. I mean, when we make these contacts. So I have it in the book, the textbook for victims of white supremacy. No contact, no conflict. If you minimize the contact, you minimize the conflict. Black people themselves know, if you just stop and think about it for a few minutes. You ever notice how well you get along with somebody you haven't seen in 15 years?
Yeah.
For the first 15 minutes anyway. Then the poison starts coming out.
Now, where does this poison? Now, let's talk about this poison. If I'm reading this right, you're telling me this poison essentially is deadly. That's what you're telling me. It's designed to kill people, to mess them up, to create conflict, to create violence. It is totally detrimental to people. And you're saying minimize the contact in all cases unless you're engaged in constructive activities.
Yes, and the constructive activities.
Now, let's be clear about what you mean by the term constructive activities. Do you have a definition of what that means? And if you can, speak very specifically to it.
I'll give you an example. Just a simple thing. So I'm going to call up Roy, let's say.
All right.
My buddy. Okay?
I
have to have a constructive reason for calling up Roy. Now, once I pick up that phone and call Roy, it's with a plan, a constructive plan, not a plan to meet up and drink beer or do drugs or sell something.
Or kicking it. Yeah,
kicking it. Or just having conversation. Hey, man, I ain't seen you in a long time. I'll be over Saturday morning, and we'll kick around the gong and whatnot. We'll just no, that's poisonous. No, it has to be, hey, Roy, this is Willie. I'll be over Saturday morning. I heard that you're having problems with that paint job on the garage. So I know about paint. So I know that coating you put on the side, you said you had problems with it. I can come over and straighten that out because I think I know what the problem is. So I'm bringing my truck over, and I'm bringing some paint that I left from my other job and whatnot. So I'm coming over, and I'll show you how to do it. I'll be helping you do it, and we can get that thing done in about 2 hours, and it'll all be taken care of. I mean, it'll be a good coat, and it'll all be finished. Now, what about it? Do you have time on Saturday? And so he says, yeah, come on over, Willie. So I go over, we unload the truck, and we can have the radio going and all like that, but not too loud. I mean, because that's poisonous and toxic to the people who are still sleeping on Saturday morning, okay? And we can have casual conversation, but we're painting. Both of us are painting. We're dipping into the paint. He's showing me what was done wrong in the first place. So we're learning something here. I'm teaching him something. He's learning something. See, and I'm learning something about, what's going on with him. I mean, as far as some project that he's working on. So we all talking business talk.
So it leads to something productive.
Yes, we don't have time to. And so now, this is very important. As soon as we finish cleaning up those paintbrushes and all like that, and stand back and look at that wonderful job. I mean, it's a wonderful job we did. I mean, and we both admiring it and whatnot. Then what I do then is not going to be in it sitting around making small talk. Load up that truck and say, okay, Roy, that's a good job, and I'll be seeing you sometime and all like that. I'll be getting back to you. You take care now, and I drive off. And I may not see Roy for another 2 years, or call him either. Why? Because I don't have a constructive reason for doing so.
All right, there's no humor at all in the exchange. I mean,
it's the humor
where does the humor go in life? Where does the fun? I mean, if we followed that, Mr. Fuller, we'd be robots, wouldn't we?
No. We are having fun like Tom Sawyer was having fun painting that fence with his buddies. That's fun. I mean, we are having a great time. When we look at that garage and see how, that garage looked awful. I mean, it was an eyesore all over the neighborhood. Now, it's the best, most outstanding thing there. I mean, we got that paint job done and all like that. That garage is first class. I mean, we're both feeling good. We had fun. We were talking. We had a little radio in the background and whatnot while we were doing it. We were talking about old times and all like that. I mean, we wasn't nitpicking each other because we're so busy. I mean, hey, hand me that other brush and all like that. See what I mean? So, hey, now I'm gone. Now, I will get along with Roy. Willie will get along with Roy, and Willie and Roy will get along all down through the ages, because every time they hook up, is something constructive going on. Something constructive. You talk, that is fun. That is over the top fun.
Mm-hmm.
What black people call fun is something destructive. See, we go hunting something destructive. We don't even know how to have fun. We don't have any idea of how to have fun. So we got to get programmed so that fun is doing something constructive.
I would say one of the biggest things that you have hit on, to me, is when you tell people to do something constructive. One of the things that probably needs to be done, Mr. Fuller, is to develop an outline of what fun and humor and constructive behavior is, because I don't think people have a clue about this. All they know is what they know. And when you say, oh, you shouldn't do that, you should, well, then what should you do to have fun, to relax, to et cetera, et cetera? How do we redefine this stuff?
That's just it. We have been told and programmed that fun is doing something destructive.
All right, then let's tell them what fun is.
Fun is doing something. No, we're going to have to manufacture that fun, because it doesn't exist right now. What fun should be is doing something constructive. And I learned that from a black sergeant back when I first started writing the materials that I put out here. And when he would get ready to do, he was always in a constructive mode, but he would always start off, not always, but most of the time, he would start off with a sentence. He said, okay, fellas, we're going to have some fun with this. And we would look at each other, because we knew that it meant some type of work. But really, after we did it, and we looked at the job that we did, we had a sense of accomplishment that we didn't have before. Mm-hmm. It was almost like magic. You might say he ran a con game on us, and we knew that. But at the same time, after it was done, we had a sense of, having done something, of being important, of having some significance.
Doing something
rather than just going somewhere and tearing up a place. Tearing up the nightclub and all like that, right. And say, sure had some fun last night.
Correct.
Leastwise, they tell me I did. Because I was so tore up, I don't know what happened. You know what I mean? See, so he even had a song by Louis Jordan out in the 1940s like that.
Yeah, I remember.
Sure had a wonderful time last night. Leastwise, they tell me I did. You had a wonderful time? You don't remember nothing? Yeah, that's what we call fun. I was stoned, man. I was out of my mind. That's fun. That's our warped idea of fun. And that's something you shouldn't wish on E.T.
And so you say that kind of behavior eventually evolves into the destructiveness that we're now seeing on the planet as it relates to black people everywhere.
Absolutely. It goes right with the 9mm, all of that. The way we interact with each other, the way we look forward to being with each other, and what we call, we're going to have some fun tonight. Mm-hmm. It means something destructive. And that's become black culture. That's right. Really what we brag about, is being black culture. Otherwise, we can't even point to anything that's black culture.
Mr. Fuller, stay right there. More to come on the compensatory concept with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr., heard exclusively on TalkTainmentRadio.com.
We've got the power.
Justice is better than racism.
This is the compensatory concept with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr., heard exclusively on TalkTainmentRadio.com. Radio, the way it should be heard. I'm Brother Kahari. And Mr. Fuller, of course, is here. He's here live every Wednesday morning, 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. But if you don't catch him live, as I said at the beginning of the show, you can always podcast him 24 hours a day. Hit Talktainment Radio, go to programs, look up the compensatory concept, and voila, we're right there. Mr. Fuller, now, black people do engage in a lot of what they call fun kind of behavior. And oftentimes, as you said, that fun kind of behavior leads to death, leads to destruction, leads to mayhem. But what's interesting, like with the so-called hip-hop thing, is a lot of young white children and older white folk are doing the same thing. They are emulating a lot of this black fun behavior. And they're really making lifestyles out of it, just like black people are doing. What's your thinking on that?
When you produce poison, you get some of it on it yourself. That, going back to the way this program started today and the way it starts on many occasions, we start with that scene from The Godfather. What did The Godfather say, sitting there at the table with Barzini and the Italians and the rest of the criminal families? He said, this drug business, it will destroy us. Said, you're talking about keeping it among the black people up there in Harlem, among the coloreds. Let them destroy themselves. They're nothing but animals anyway. That's what you're saying. But you don't understand the nature of drugs. The next thing you know, our own children will be using it. And that's what I don't want to be a part of. That's what Don Corleone was saying to the Barzinis and the Italians. And that's what happens in the system of white supremacy. But the system of white supremacy also is set up on a percentage basis, so that the real smart white supremacists have said, oh, yeah, of course, we're going to have some white sacrifices in our army. We're going to have to sacrifice some of our own people. Some of our own children are going to get caught up in nonsense. But we will still have the basic power. We will never let those black people start doing anything constructive on a scale where we can't control them. So we will do it on a percentage basis. For every 10,000 of them who is all messed up, we will probably have maybe a couple of thousand or maybe 500 of our own that are all messed up. But percentage-wise, we are always hold the power, hold the reins of what goes on in the world.
So this is the cost. I mean, the cost has come that high for white supremacists to maintain white supremacy?
Yes. The cost of doing the business of white supremacy is going up simply because most of the dark people, or many of the dark people on the planet, now are becoming smarter and more constructive than they ever have been before. So the more constructive, the smarter, and that's what you mean by smart, in a constructive sense rather than a destructive sense. Many people all over the world now, when you look at the dark-skinned people of the world, the non-white people, many of them are beginning to think about doing something, breaking away from their old habits and doing something constructive and thinking constructively, trying to learn how to do things that will have a constructive result. Now, this is always bad for the criminal enterprise called white supremacy. This is always very foreboding to them. But they have got to modify what they do because they are being forced to. So that means more white sacrifices. So you'll see more white people out here doing simple-minded things, but not on such a grand scale that the entire system of white supremacy comes apart.
Interesting.
If it starts heading toward that tipping line, see, they know where that tipping line is. They will open up on black people like you wouldn't believe.
What do you mean by when you say open up?
I mean open up with wholesale violence to put us in our place. Say, look, you're getting too far out of hand now. You are not supposed to be a constructive people. So I am going to drop a bomb on you or whatever it is. But you are not going to be a constructive people. As long as you are destructive, fine. As long as you are doing what you do in Rwanda and what these gangs do over here in this area of the world and all like that, just running around with machetes and whatnot, slaughtering each other, no problem. We love that. That's entertainment for us. As long as you're using drugs and selling drugs to each other and glorifying it and all like that and then killing each other because of the drugs, that's fine. As long as you're riding around on bicycles or drive-by shootings and whatnot and robbing people and whatnot, I mean, that's fine. We all endorse that. That's what we want you to do. You're nothing but trash anyway. We want to see you a trashy people. We don't want to see you doing anything constructive unless it's something constructive for us, we white supremacists, because we will make you do what is constructive for us. This is why the pretty buildings and the pretty neighborhoods are all where we are. You know that because we see to it that it's that way. But wherever you are, we want you to just tear it up, break it up, put graffiti all over the place, write graffiti even on yourselves in the form of what they call tattoos. Just walk around looking like zombies. I mean, just wild, broken glass, broken heads, broken bodies, yellow tape all over the place, blinking lights. Wherever you find black people, you see, as soon as it gets dark, blinking lights all over the place. Cartridges, 9mm, lying all over the place with yellow circles around them. How many shots were fired?
Mm-hmm.
You know, that's what you call the typical black life. That's black culture. That's black culture at its very best, and which means that it's just about all of black culture. Wherever you go in the world, that's what you'll see. Whenever you see black people, this is what you're going to see. Nothing constructive going on at all. That's the way we want it. And when they start showing signs of being constructive, oh, that's bad for our business. That's bad for our business.
So that's not a good business model for white supremacy.
No, that's not a business model for black people at all. No, they are breaking out of their... No, we can't have that. They're doing something constructive. Get down there and start some mess. As fast as you can. And we know how to do that.
That's heavy.
We white supremacists.
So if black people tomorrow flip that script, now this is interesting what you said. If they flip that script tomorrow and decided no more killing, no more robbing, no more non-constructive acts in the mass, they start that, what would be the response of white supremacists?
The white supremacists will immediately start to crank it up because they can do it. See, they do have the power. I mean, and they'll just popularize it. I mean, you know, and they do it surreptitiously. Like they would just simply say, just crank it up. They'll say, hey, we don't have enough movies out here. We don't have enough songs out here. We don't have enough of anything.
Like they sort of did with pimping. There was a point when pimping, as we know it, had practically disappeared in the African American. You remember that back in and then all of a sudden HBO comes out with this pimping stuff. And
we got to have 15-year-olds out here with their sisters pimping them. I mean,
and then all of a sudden, pimping takes off again, and the rest is history, as we well know by now.
Yes. Hey, we'll just recycle some of the other stuff that we've been doing, and some of it that hasn't really died out, but we'll just glorify it more. That's all. Anything destructive. Pick out about 15 things that are absolutely destructive among these people, and just dump it on them. Dump it on them in the schools. And everything, popularize it. Write some songs, I mean, that says that this is what you're supposed to be doing when you're growing up. I mean, if you're ever going to grow up, this is what you be just like your uncle. It's all locked up. Follow him right into that lockup. I mean, and glorify that. Glorify the penitentiary. Make that seem glamorous. Make that seem like it's fun. Hey, I'm going to jail today. That's fun. Man, hey, that's the place to be. That's where all action is. Black culture. That's what it's become if we tell the truth. But to counteract that, I'm saying the most important thing that we can do right this minute is, and I'm going to put it in a graphic way, when you see black people coming, go the other way until you can figure out something constructive to say or do if you're going to come anywhere close to that black person. If every black person on the planet does that right this minute, the world would be a better place right on that alone. Because
of all the stuff that they carry around inside of their heads.
Absolutely.
All of those years of programming.
The first thing you'll notice is how quiet everything got.
Yeah, all those years of programming.
Yes.
All of that stuff is designed to produce a certain kind of product.
Sure.
And that product is a self-destructive human being.
Sure, and you don't have to worry about black people milling around among white people now and starting some mess, because they know how to handle us when we start mess. Now, they'll let us get away with a little bit, but 15 or 20 black people around a sea of white people, and they start some mess, you know what's going to happen. See, they know how to put us, make us act like we got some sense. And we know that. That's why we don't like to be around white people, if we tell the truth. We like to be around each other because we can get away with mess. White people are not going to allow us to get away with mess. They will let us know who's boss real quick. They'll allow a little of it. They'll kind of laugh along with it for a while, but they'll say, hey, that's enough foolishness. That's enough of this Negro foolishness. Now let's get down to white people's business. And we all know what that means.
That's deep. Mr. Fuller, closing thoughts. We got about a minute.
Well, that's the closing thought. The closing thought is we need to stop being around each other unless we have something constructive to do or say. Stop talking to each other unless we have something constructive to do or say. Keep that distance. And we would improve instantly. I mean, overnight, the world would change. Just on that alone. Not to say anything about doing other things.
Now, how do you stop the toxicity coming from the other direction? How do you counter that?
Oh, you mean what other direction?
I mean, people are toxic because, according to what you're saying, they've been programmed to be toxic. So how do you stop the programming? How do you stop that programming from coming in?
Oh, it will be coming at you, but if you don't have any way to transfer it, it will die. Yes, if you ever notice a black person standing alone, that black person will be forced to start thinking constructively. It's only when the black person hooks up with other black people. You get 4 of them together. Now you got a recipe for dynamite right there. You got a recipe for failure. You got a recipe for some kind of trouble, because we don't know what to do with each other. But when we are alone, we are forced. And a black person walking down by the seashore by himself, I mean, that's almost like a sin. I mean, the sound of the water and whatnot, begin to relate to nature and whatnot, begin to notice the birds and whatnot.
Got you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Fuller. Appreciate you as always. Thanks for listening to The Compensatory Concept with Mr. Neely Fuller, heard exclusively on TalkTainmentRadio.com, the world's greatest radio.
You got the power. Radio, the way it should be heard.